Hi, this is Cyprian. He's 6 weeks old. So thanks for not clapping. He's still asleep. I'm Carolina. I'm an engineer and an astrophysicist by training. What I've always loved about my work is the perspective that we get from astronomy. When we become aware of our place in the universe or see the Earth from space, everything gets put into perspective. Our conflicts, our problems, and I've always loved that. But I think I found something even more profound now, and that's what I'm here for tonight. So what does motherhood mean to you? Does it make you think of your own mother? Does it make you think of helplessness at trying to soothe a crying newborn? Of pride and joy at seeing a child grow? Of pain at seeing a child struggle with life and not being able to help? Or the profound fear of anything happening to the most amazing little human that ever was? Wait, what was that? The most amazing little human that ever was. That person, that little person who is so much more than just a 5-year-old or a teenager or a fancy executive or a guy on the side of the road waiting for a job. So much more. In fact, think of the worst person you can think of. A corrupt politician, a dictator that killed thousands, a rapist who abused his victims in unspeakable ways, or just a colleague at work who makes your life hell. Well, chances are they all have a mother who sees them as so much more. As a helpless baby, a happy child playing with a stick, a sad child with a broken dream, or a young adult with big dreams, or today's grown-up. There is a perfect child behind every madman and every good man alike. You'll notice I focus on men here. The reason is simple. Men rule this world. Men design our world and our living environments. Men sit on the board of corporations. They make decisions. They make wars. And then they make bargains for peace. It is men who fill parliaments and make laws in the overwhelming majority. And it is men who fill prison and break laws in the overwhelming majority. So what does motherhood mean to me? Well, simply infinite, unconditional love. Infinite, unconditional love means my child is perfect just the way he is. Infinite, unconditional love means that, of course, he never meant for anything to go wrong. It means that it's pointless to talk about second chances, because whatever happens, he will always be beautifully and perfectly himself, the most amazing little human that ever was. But really, what is a mother's love? Biologically, it can be traced back to oxytocin, a phenomenal hormone that drives labor and childbirth. Oxytocin gets released when breastfeeding too. Scientific studies have shown that oxytocin reduces fear and increases trust. It has an effect on generosity and empathy as well. And this plays a role in romantic relationships. And men display more monogamous behavior with oxytocin as well. So if you ask me, that's a pretty cool natural drug. Men have oxytocin too, of course. But I believe the single biggest dose of oxytocin anyone ever gets is a mother when she gives birth to a child and then when she breastfeeds him. So what does this megadose of love hormone do? All of the above, but stronger. Bonding in love, trust, generosity, empathy, forgiveness, affection, and attachment. So much so, in fact, that most mothers are ready to do anything for their child. Mothers can empathize. Mothers can see the best in their children. I see it every day. I see it in my 2-year-old, even at the height of his fiercest tantrums. Mothers can forgive anything because they see their child as so much more than what it is he needs to be forgiven for. Oh, he's waking up, shit. But this is, of course, not the whole story. It's easy to claim that mothers can love their children infinitely and unconditionally, but the reality is quite different. Love for a child, like anything human, is both strong and incredibly fragile. Love for a child grows. It's not instantaneous, like sometimes the media would have us believe. you want to go to your daddy? I think he wants to go to his daddy. Oh, I think he wants to go to his daddy. I just hope he's not hungry. So that was Cyprian's first talk. Okay, where was I? Love for a child grows, that's right. It's not necessarily instantaneous, like the media would have us believe sometimes. And some women feel real guilt at not being awash with this love at first sight for their newborn. Baby blues and postpartum depression are a reality. Culture is also a strong force that can break the good work of oxytocin. Think of the unmarried mother of an illegitimate child who's being shunned by everyone around her. How does she reconcile her urge to love with the guilt brought on by her cultural norms? How does a woman love a child of rape? A flourishing mother's love is not straightforward. It needs the right conditions. But when it does flourish, it creates a safe place for children to grow up and become emotionally balanced, self-confident adults with a sort of emotional intelligence that is increasingly recognized as a key quality of leaders. Leaders of companies, leaders of countries, leaders of people. So what does the absence of love do to a child and to the adult he then becomes? Well, infants who are neglected and young children whose carers don't respond quickly to their cries of distress experience high doses of cortisol. Cortisol is another hormone. It's a stress hormone. And we now know that it plays a big role in children's development. A study by Bergman et al. Show that children exposed to cortisol display, well, it has an impact on their cognitive development. And in this study, it's their mother's hormone in utero, let alone their own after birth. A working paper by the US National Scientific Council on the Developing Child, that's based at Harvard University, reviews all the evidence and the research on the lifelong effects of stress hormones on children. But basically, chronic exposure to high levels of cortisol set the stage for fearful, insecure, and even aggressive adults who are more likely to suffer from learning disorders, depression, and drug abuse, among other things. And as American psychiatrist Carl Menninger said, what we do to our children, they do to society. So let's think about this for a second. If a young boy doesn't benefit from his mother's love, he can become insecure, fearful, aggressive. Boys and young men have always been under pressure to prove themselves. We cannot change that. But we may have an influence on how they do it and what it is that they have to prove. If we look at different communities, we can see different of those hows. In healthy communities, often associated with wealth and education, it can be a positive feedback loop of values, such as caring for one's family or furthering one's own children's education. In communities plagued by poverty, substance abuse, and crime, joining a gang seems to be one way to prove one's manhood. Displaying violent behavior towards women and others less strong than oneself is also a common pattern, although we know that's not what makes a man. Communities face many different challenges, and communities like that, women are often the breadwinners, and they have to go back to work after giving birth as quickly as possible, leaving an infant in need of love to the less loving care of others. But even when the mother is there to care for the child, and this is important, that child sees their mother, the source of their social and emotional grounding, disrespected and often even abused by those around her. How does that skew the child's understanding of love and how much society values it? So I talk about communities with challenges here, but we must remember that this happens anywhere, everywhere. Gender-based discrimination is a reality. It is unfortunate, but it seems that women are just not worth as much as men in today's societies. And surely that has an influence on how the growing up children perceive the value of that love and the good it can do to them as developing people. So, here's an idea. What if we saw the fight for children's and women's rights not from that perspective, but from the perspective of what a loving and nurturing motherhood can do to the leaders of tomorrow? And realize that in fact it is that love that we are fighting for, and not some vulnerable people that us privileged people feel detached from. Because every single one of us, you, me, we all have a mother who probably did her very best in her own circumstances. So if we let mother's love flourish in a society that values it as much as other patriarchal values, well, maybe, just maybe, we could create a generation of corporate board executives, lawmakers, community leaders, and generally people who might be a little less competitive, a little more empathetic and generous, a little less envious, and a little more trusting in each other's humanity. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Well, some speak of a divine love, of gods that forgive anything and welcome you in their realm of paradise. Well, maybe we can make that happen here a little bit already. I experience that love for my children every day. I feel that love every time I see, hear, smell, touch, and kiss my kids. Yet I am not a goddess or an extraordinary person in any way. I am just a mother, like so many other women in this world. But thanks to opportunities, education, work, and an incredibly supportive husband, as you've seen, I have been given the opportunity to love infinitely and unconditionally. My two children have made me a better person in so many ways. I am more forgiving of the world's injustices because I have two boys to raise. I am more generous because I have been given two beautiful children to love. I am more empathetic because everyone I see, I'm just so aware that they all come from the womb of a mother. I am closer to people, however different, because everyone was once a bright-eyed child ready to learn the world. And I am in awe of women everywhere because I see their love for their children in everything they do, in their drive, in their struggles every day. My two boys have given me the gift of infinite and unconditional love. And the little personal evidence that I have from loving infinitely and unconditionally is that it goes way beyond just my boys. And it profoundly affects the way I navigate this men's world. And it is this loving perspective that I try to teach my sons, and that I wish for every mother, father, and child in this world to experience. Thank you.